Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update.
You're listening to Money FM 89.3. I'm Rachel Kelly. Now, we've come to the end of 2022, and what a year it's been when it comes to climate change, sustainability, investing, and the push towards being more sustainable. But the question is, with all of these large projects going on, how are they going to be funded or financed? Well, to help us answer that question, we're joined now by Margie Ong, who's a partner Southeast Asia at ERM. Margie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
It's great to have you with us. So, Margie, you head up the corporate sustainability and climate change practice at ERM. You were also the CEO of Thoughts in Gear. That's a sustainability and social impact consulting firm. Tell me, what are your thoughts on the year that was as we start to reflect on 2022 before we look forward and discuss some of the trends that you're seeing in the market?
Oh my goodness, what a year. No, I think you framed it absolutely correctly, Rachel. Even from, I've been in sustainability for about a decade now. And I think in the past year, we've probably seen more momentum and more energy in the sector than even the past 5 years, for example. And I think part of it is the coming back after the pandemic. I think part of it really highlighted the criticality of us paying attention to the world around us, to nature, to people. And I think that's really coming to fruition.
And there have been a lot of conversations about how we really take that step forward, especially when it comes to energy. We can't just, take a leap away from fossil fuels. Everyone talks about transition, about natural gas. But we've got to talk about developing the technologies and the energies to kind of drive forward that sustainable energy future. And a big element of that, Margie, is funding, isn't it? But what are your thoughts on private sector finance and the role that private sector finance plays when we're looking at the energy transition for Southeast Asia?
Right. And the transition that's coming up is in terms of the scale of financing that's needed. So if we look at the financing scale globally today, so assets under management total about 100 trillion at the moment across the globe. And by 2030, we need at least 1 trillion in climate financing alone in order to achieve a lot of the energy transition and a lot of the other sustainability linked projects that you mentioned as well. Now, this energy transition specifically in terms of, for example, investigating technologies that will help us, investigating alternative types of fuels. And that's one of the things that we're doing very actively at the moment as ERM, is helping folks really discover what do alternative fuels mean? What's acceptable, what's not? What is actually the more sustainable fuel? How are those going to play out in terms of being very reliable sources of energy to power the world today? So really, some of these very important questions that need the financing in order to not just be discovered, not just in terms of the design phase, but very much and hopefully very quickly going into the implementation phase of those technologies as well.
And Margie, it's not just about private sector finance, is it? I mean, it's really a collaboration with public-private sector when we're looking at driving the energy transition. To talk to us about blended finance, some of the challenges there, and how you see this moving forward when it comes to the energy transition. What are some of the challenges? And I guess what I'm trying to ask you is, how are they overcome when we're looking at blended finance and tackling the energy transition?
Yeah. So if we take a step back and we look at the private sector as the wealth generator, and of course, public finance and philanthropic offices, et cetera, as more of the wealth distributors, if you will. And if we look at the role of finance in pushing new technologies, not just climate finance, not just new energy transition technologies, but even historically, it has always taken a push to invest in new technologies from a blended or a governmental momentum perspective. So if we take a look at energy transition today, so some of the more developed and proven technologies like solar and wind, for example, that is becoming a lot more applicable at the moment for large-scale private financing. Then we have new technologies as well, whereby private financing does need the role of government, both in terms of blended finance, in terms of being able to leverage public financing to progress sustainable finance, but also the role of government in playing three key roles. So one in terms of, well, on the extreme, one in terms of regulation, for example, bringing in the motivation, shall we say, in order to be able to accelerate not just the development of more sustainable energies, but in terms of the uptake and the use of sustainable energies. And two, in terms of standardization, what do we mean by more sustainable energies? What does this transition mean? How do we make this a just transition? And of course, thirdly, from a governance perspective as well.
What are some of the key trends, though? You mentioned, obviously, that solar as one of the sustainable energies that's kind of been proven. What are some of the key trends that you see in the market? Obviously, a few weeks ago, we saw that huge breakthrough when it comes to fusion technology, although that's not quite there yet. But what are some of the key trends that you see when it comes to the energy transition, and how do you see those flowing into next year?
And no, you're absolutely right. I mean, that was obviously a very, very exciting announcement. Not anything I'm sure we'll see anytime extremely soon as a reliable source, but it's technologies like that and it's innovations like that. So in terms of trends, definitely solar and wind, especially for relevant for our parts of the world, and some of the trends around CCUS, so carbon capture and storage as well, which is very much at the moment being developed, especially by the large energy players today. But in terms of, so if you look at the academic papers around it, I think there are also alternative viewpoints around possibly the effectiveness or the ability to sustain such technologies as well. So again, it's very much a discovery mode in terms of those areas. But I think if we come back to financing and if we look at the ability beyond technologies to be able to finance in whether it's in the region or in the world, we can think about the complexities of implementation as well. And if you go by even the more established technologies today, the key to private sector financing in enabling implementation, for example, comes in a couple of ways. So, we've got, there's a lot of talk around green loans or sustainability linked loans. And it's very much around mobilizing assets, not just in terms of discovering new technologies, but truly being able to, on two levels. So on one level is being able to deploy private financing towards the practicality and implementation of these more proven technologies. And secondly, in terms of being able to screen not just climate purpose-built funds, but also being able to ensure that there is an ESG lens on other funds that are in fact touching all facets of society, and being able to ensure that there is a sustainability facet within those other funds as well.
Margie, very quickly, while I've got you with me, what do you see as being the key trends when it comes to financing the energy transition in 2023?
I think for sure the areas around the ability to leverage both removal of carbon, for example, through CCUS, as mentioned, but also to be able to explore solutions like nature-based solutions, for example. At the moment, I mean, we had a very exciting announcement from COP15, and hopeful and waiting for the details around the conclusion of that. But I think come 2023, the financing around climate will be focused, and energy transition in particular will be focused around the two areas that we've already discussed. So one being discovery of new technologies in terms of being able to ensure that we are actually transitioning the emitters at the moment, but also the ability to remove carbon from our existing environment. And secondly, the implementation of the solutions that are being discovered. And I think that might actually take a larger focus than it has before. So come 2023, we're beginning to see some technologies that actually transition into the feasibility area for mass implementation. And I think that's where financing will be key in ensuring that the uptake and the adoption of those technologies actually achieve the goals that we need in order for the planet to continue to sustain.
Wonderful. Well, Margie, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you, Rachel. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Margie Ong, partner Southeast Asia at ERM. You're listening to Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at moneyfm893.sg or download our audio app. That's AWEDIO. Available on Google Play or the App Store.